The sound beneath the ice groaned like a living thing. Thick and endless above the frozen sea of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The research base floated silently on the surface, a dark metal island surrounded by pure white silence. Nothing ever moved there until now. Carter stood in the control room. Staring at the sonar screen, his fingers trembled as he tapped the console again and again to refresh the scan. Something was down there, something moving fast and deep. Beneath the ice shelf? It wasn't a glitch, it wasn't a whale, and it wasn't a machine. The signal had shapened rhythm, organic pulse, he whispered, his breath fogging the glass inside his helmet. It's real, no one believed him, the rest of the science. Team called it a misread, a pressure echo, or just a computer error, but Carter knew better. He had been studying Europa's subsurface ocean for 2 years, and nothing in his data had ever looked like this. The movement was intelligent, graceful, and fast. He requested permission for a solo dive. But the commander denied him instantly. Too dangerous, she had said. No confirmation of life. And you'd be risking the equipment. So Carter waited until lights dimmed for artificial night. He loaded the mini-sub and descended into the darkness alone, as the sub lowered into the icy water. The light above vanished like a curtain closing. Only the sub's faint glow lit the liquid black world around him. Pressure creaked around the hull. But Carter didn't care. His eyes were locked on the sonar, waiting for another glimpse. Nothing. For a long time, just the slow thrum of the ocean, thick and cold. He adjusted course toward the last known signal. Passing sharp ice ridges and deep cracks glowing faint blue with chemical light, then he saw her. At first he thought it was a reflection, a trick of the water. But then she turned. Her eyes glowed with soft green light. Her skin was pale silver, scaled lightly like a fish, but soft like skin. Her hair floated like a dark cloud moving with the current, and her chest. Carter stared in disbelief. She had lungs. Not gills. Her body moved like a dolphin, but her form was unmistakably humanoid. His heart slammed against his ribs. Not from fear, but awe. She didn't swim away. Instead, she tilted her head. Watching him with the same wonder he felt, Carter raised his hand slowly, palm open. She mirrored him. Their hands almost touched through the sub's window, then just as quickly she darted away, vanishing into a narrow crevice of glowing ice. Carter gasped. "Wait," he whispered, but she was gone. Only one thing remained behind, drifting in the water like a leaf, a small stone etched with markings, too perfect to be natural, too detailed to be accidental. He brought it aboard, its surface smooth and warm, even underwater. Symbols glowed softly on it. Pulsing like a heartbeat, he didn't know what it meant, but he knew it was hers. He returned to the surface. Heart racing, mind spinning, but when he got back to the base, everything went wrong. The docking crew saw the artifact and raised alarms. Security locked down the sub. The stone was taken for analysis, and Carter was called in for questioning. "You left the base without clearance," the station commander said, her eyes cold. "You risked the only deep-sea module and brought back unknown material." Carter tried to explain. He told them about the creature, the markings, the signals. But they didn't care. They saw him as reckless. A scientist chasing fairy tales. They grounded him from further dives, banned him from touching the sub again. That night, Carter sat alone in his room, staring out the window at the frozen world beyond. He knew what he saw was real. He had proof. The camera on his suit had recorded it all, but the footage was missing from the system. Someone had deleted it. Someone didn't want the truth to come out. Someone up high was hiding something, but Carter didn't feel fear, he felt determination. He looked down at his own private datapad, hidden beneath the bed. Inside was a backup of the dive's readings, including the sonar track and a photo of the stone before it was taken. He smiled. Cold and sharp. "You can lock the doors," he whispered, "but you can't stop me from diving again." Deep beneath the ice, something was waiting. Something ancient, intelligent, and lonely. And Carter was going to find her again. Contact at depth. The ocean beneath Europa's ice was no longer silent. Something had awakened. Carter could feel it even before his boots touched the launch bay floor again. He wasn't supposed to be there, The base had locked him out of all diving protocols. But that didn't stop him, not after what he had seen. He moved like a shadow through the empty corridors, carrying a small pack and a data chip hidden in his sleeve. The stone artifact was gone, confiscated and sealed by the higher-ups bet. He still had its image, its pulse patterns, and the last known coordinates of the alien creature. He didn't want revenge. He wanted answers. He wanted to see her again. This time he used a prototype drone, small and silent, modified to carry a relay that could mimic the sound pulses recorded from her. The device wasn't made for deep navigation, but it was enough. He sent it through a side vent into the icy sea, watching its feed from his quarters, heart racing like a drum. At first, the water was still, cold, empty, just as it always was. Carter tapped the screen nervously, adjusting the relay frequency. Then movement. A shadow cut across the screen, long and elegant. It was her. She didn't swim away this time. Instead, she hovered just ahead of the drone, watching it curiously. Her fingers touched the relay node. The pulses shifted, new patterns flowing like a song. Carter quickly recorded everything, then typed back matching tones using the drone system. A conversation begins, low, awkward, but real. Each sound meant something. Feeling, a question, an emotion. The drone repeated her pulses, and she responded with more complex waves. Her eyes narrowed as if testing him, then softened. The distance between them disappeared. Then, without warning, she gestured for the drone to follow. She led it downward deeper than before, past twisting tunnels and strange glowing sea plants, into a hidden cave cloaked by layers of dense ice. Carter leaned closer to the screen, breath held tight. The cave was enormous. Its walls lined with soft green light from natural crystal veins, and at the center floated a structure like a temple, carved into the rock, ancient and smooth, with pillars that twisted like coral but were shaped by intelligent hands. Entered through the broken gate, and the drone followed. Inside, the camera picked up markings on the walls, symbols similar to those on the stone she left behind. Carter zoomed in, trying to map them, but the drone's signal started to weaken. Pressure climbing and temperature dropping. He had minutes before it would fail. Then he saw a tan image etched into the far wall. It showed a creature like her, but taller, wearing something like armor, standing before a great beast made of shadows and teeth. Carter felt a chill through his spine. This wasn't just art. It was a warning. Suddenly, the feed cut to static. The drone was gone. Carter sat back in his chair, stunned and shaking. But his fear didn't last long, because something beeped on his console. A new signal was coming through, not from the drone, but from outside the base. A soft, rhythmic pulse, the same tone the creature had used. She was calling to him. She had learned the signal and was now sending it back, stronger and more clearly than before. Carter moved fast, opening the nearest manual override hatch and slipping into the pressurized suit he had hidden days ago. He didn't care if the base caught him. This was his chance, maybe his last. He entered the sub manually and launched without permission, diving into the dark sea once again. As he dropped into the cold, black water, the pulse grew louder in his headset. She was guiding him now. Carter followed the signal deeper and deeper, past thermal vents and jagged cliffs, until a soft glow appeared ahead. There she was, waiting for him. Her arms were stretched out. Not in warning, but in welcome. He opened. The sub hatched slowly and floated into the open water, tethered by safety cable. She approached with careful grace, eyes wide and filled with something he hadn't seen before, trust. She touched his gloved hand, and a spark ran through the suit. His vision blurred, and then cleared again, and in that moment, he saw not the ocean but a memory, her world. Once filled with thousands of her kind, swimming freely through coral towers and warm currents, now empty, broken, shattered by something unseen. Something that came from the black depths below and drove them into hiding. Carter gasped as the vision ended, the pain in her eyes still etched in his mind. She needed help, not just curiosity, not just science. She was asking for a lifeline. And Carter knew he couldn't ignore it. Not anymore. He looked into her eyes, and gave a single nod. She turned slowly, swimming ahead again, inviting him to follow. Deeper into her world, deeper into a mystery, older than human life itself, and this time he would not turn back. The breach below the water around Carter was silent, but the silence felt heavy. Like something was holding its breath, the alien mermaid swam ahead of him, her form glowing faintly in the deep. Her movements were slower now, more careful, like she knew something he didn't. Carter followed, his pulse matching the low hum in his headset. They had gone deeper than he ever imagined, past the known maps, past where any human drone had reached. This was uncharted space, untouched by research or satellites, only darkness and cold pressure surrounded them, but the mermaid kept moving forward, leading him through narrow rock tunnels and glowing underwater canyons. Then the tremor began. Just a small rumble at first, then stronger, louder, shaking the water like a growl from the planet's core. Carter reached for a wall, trying to steady himself. The mermaid stopped and turned, her eyes wide, filled with sudden panic. The rock beneath them cracked, a deep fissure opening like a mouth, releasing a rush of warm current and clouds of black silt. The water twisted violently, pulling Carter downward. He tried to fight the pull, kicking hard, but his tether snapped. The current dragged him through the new rift. Light vanished, pressure crushed around him. Alarms blinked red inside his suit, then faded. Carter felt the world spin until something grabbed him, something strong and gentle. She had followed him, even into the storm, her arms wrapped around him, and with powerful strokes, she pulled him free, out of the rift, out of the spinning chaos, and into a still, wide space that opened beneath the broken rock. A hidden world waited below, untouched, ancient. The water was warmer here, and light shimmered from strange plants clinging to walls. A massive cavern opened before them, and floating in its center was a city. Buildings like coral towers rose from the stone floor, their shapes curved and organic, covered in soft light, and symbols that pulsed like heartbeat. Bridges stretched across empty streets, and large stone faces watched from archways with blank, hollow eyes. The city was quiet, dead but not forgotten. The mermaid guided Carter through the ruins, past statues with their same features, past walls covered in carvings of swimming families, star maps, and sea creatures too large to name. Carter's breath caught as he realized what this was. A civilization lost beneath ice, a city of her people. Frozen in time, destroyed by something violent and final, she stopped at a temple-like structure. Its doors broken and half buried. Inside were more carvings, deeper and darker. They showed her people fighting a great beast from the bottom of the sea, something with many arms and a face like jagged stone. The creature swallowed towers, crushed the city, and then disappeared again into the abyss. She looked at Carter and placed her hand on his helmet. A soft light passed through his suit, and a vision filled his mind again, this time stronger. Clearer, he saw the past through her memory. Her people once ruled this ocean, their songs echoing through the currents. They built great cities and machines that lit the deep. They had names, stories, and dreams, just like humans. But then the shadow came, rising from the seafloor. It could not be killed, only sealed, and in their final hour, they closed this city, hoping it would stay buried forever. Carter's eyes stung with salt and sorrow. When the vision ended, she looked down. Her fingers touched a cracked wall, and something behind it pulsed, once dim and soft. A sealed door, still alive, still locked. Something was behind it. Carter raised his scanner. The readings were strange energy signatures. Old and unstable, but still present. It was a power source. Or maybe even a message, a warning left behind. He wanted to go closer, to touch the door, but she held his hand firmly and shook her head. Not yet, not now. Her message was clear: what lay beyond must stay asleep. For now, they left the chamber in silence. Swimming slowly past the ghostly streets, Carter looked back once, the ruined city fading into shadow again. He understood now why she had brought him here. It wasn't just to show him their history. It was to make him part of it, as they rose toward the upper layers again. Carter thought about the others back at base. If they knew what lay below, they would come, with drills and fire, with science and greed. They would rip this place open, chasing what they couldn't understand. They would bring the shadow back. Carter knew now some secrets had to be protected, even from his own kind. And the only way to keep them safe was to stay with her and guard what slept in the breach below. Asterisk forbidden signals, red lights flashed across the base. Not alarms, but something worse. Silence. The kind of silence that followed a secret being uncovered. Carter was back inside, but everything felt wrong. Eyes followed him through glass walls. Whispers passed behind closed doors. He wasn't alone anymore, and someone knew what he had found. They had searched his quarters, erased his backups, sealed every system he used. The artifact was gone, the drone logs deleted. His dive logs had been corrupted, labeled as malfunctions, and yet someone had copied everything before deleting it. They weren't trying to stop the truth, they were trying to steal it. Carter sat quietly in the lab, tending to work while his fingers tapped out a hidden pattern beneath the console. It was a relay signal, the same one the alien mermaid had taught him. He knew she could hear it if she was close enough. It was a call, not just a herd, but a warning. The message went out in pulses, soft and slow. But then, something answered, not her. The signal returned, twisted and sharp. It didn't carry her warmth. It was harsher, faster, more aggressive. Carter froze, staring at the screen. A second creature, similar in form but larger, older, maybe even wounded, was now watching him from the deep. Its image flickered once in the sonar feed, then vanished into darkness. The mermaid was no longer alone, and not all her kind wanted peace. Before he could act, security officers entered the lab. Silent and armed, they took Carter without a word, brought him to the upper level, where the station commander waited. Her expression was calm, her voice colder than Europa's ocean. "We reviewed your footage," she said. "There's something down there, and your artifact triggered an automated alert from orbit. Corporate wants results, not fairy tales." Carter said nothing. She leaned closer. "You're going to take us there." They had seen just enough to believe, but not enough to understand. They didn't care about the creature, or her past, or the city beneath the ice. They wanted power, data, resources, something to bring back and sell. And Carter was the key, that night. Locked in a glass chamber, Carter received another pulse. It buzzed weakly through a transmitter he had hidden in his boot. He tapped back a response, but it wasn't her voice that came through the current. It was a scream, a sonic burst that shook his bones, followed by static and then silence. The aggressive creature was getting closer. Something had provoked it, and it wasn't just coming for him, it was coming for her. The next morning, the dive began. 3 subs, heavily armed, with steel claws and heat probes. Carter sat in the lead vessel, hands clenched, heart pounding. The mermaid had saved him twice. Now he had to return the favor. As they approached the rift, the sonar grew wild, showing motion in every direction. The currents were disturbed. Temperature spikes shot across the graphs. Something big was rising from the depths. A shadow passed beneath their fleet, larger than anything they had mapped. The second mer creature had awakened. The first attack came quick. A tail like a whip struck the second sub, sending it spiraling into a jagged ice wall. The third vessel fired a thermal burst, sending boiling clouds into the water. Carter yelled through the cum, "Stop firing! It's not hostile unless we are." No one listened. The commander screamed back, "Anything that size is a threat." But then the original mermaid appeared, swimming between Carter's sub and the attacker. She pushed back against the current, arms stretched wide, her body glowing with bright patterns like a shield. The larger creature hesitated, turning its gaze toward her. Their lights pulsed, not in rage but in ancient speech. Carter saw them communicating, arguing, pleading. The humans prepared another weapon strike. Not understanding the exchange, Carter made a decision. He shut off the sub's engine, opened the hatch, and launched himself into the water. He floated between the 2 alien beings, hands raised, trusting that she would protect him again. The larger creature roared in vibration but didn't strike. The mermaid swam to Carter, pressed her forehead against his helmet, and the chaos stopped. The larger one turned, vanishing into the black, not in defeat but in warning. One more mistake from the surface and it would not hold back. Back at the base, Carter was arrested, declared a security threat. You endangered everyone, the commander spat. For what, a fishwoman? But Carter didn't flinch. He now understood the truth. This wasn't about discovery. It was about balance. It's about choosing which world to protect, and who to trust beneath the waves. Locked in his cell, Carter waited. Not in fear, but in hope. Because deep in the ocean, a signal pulsed again. Soft and steady. She hadn't given up on him, and he wouldn't give up on her. Blood in the water, metal screamed beneath the ocean. Carter's stolen sub twisted violently as a monstrous force slammed into its side. Lights burst, alarms shrieked, and warning signals filled his helmet. He had disobeyed every order, broken free from his cell, and returned to the deep to warn her, but he was too late. Something was already hunting her, and now it had found him too, through the cracked window of his sub. Carter saw movement, a massive tail, rough and scarred, slicing through the dark. It was the larger creature again, the second one, the one that didn't trust him. Its eyes were full of rage and fear. Not at him, but at what followed. Behind them, something darker moved in the water. Not glowing, not pulsing, it absorbed all light, like it came from the deepest part of the ocean's heart. And it was rising fast. The alien mermaid appeared. Like a streak of silver between Carter and the shadow, she swam hard toward his broken sub, her hands glowing as she pushed against the water. Carter could see the panic in her eyes, the urgency. She slammed her palm on the sub's emergency release and pulled him out into the freezing water. He floated in her arms. Breath shallow, pressure pounding in his ears. She touched his chest, and warmth flooded his suit. A soft glow spreading from her hand. He could breathe again, but only barely. Her eyes met his, and then she turned sharply, facing the darkness behind them. It struck, a blur of claws and hunger so fast Carter could hardly see. The second mer-creature lunged to block it, and the two collided in a violent burst of sound. The water exploded with light and bubbles as the fight began. Carter was pulled by the current. Helpless, spinning through silt and shattered ice, he saw Flash's sharp teeth. Blue blood, pulsing wounds, and the alien mermaid darting between the two titans, trying to stop them. Then it happened, her body jerked, and a dark stream leaked from her side, blood glowing faintly in the water. Carter's heart stopped. She had been struck. Everything changed. The larger creature backed away, eyes wide with alarm. The shadow vanished into the deep again, retreating at the scent of her blood. But something else began to stir. The water around them shifted as her blood mixed with the ocean. Faint shapes appeared in the distance. Hundreds of glowing eyes, some curious, some hungry, things that had slept for centuries were waking now. Drawn by the scent of a wounded queen, Carter grabbed her wrist and kicked upward, pulling her toward the rocky outcropping where they had first met. Her body was limp, but her eyes remained open, watching him. Trusting him, he found a narrow crack between two massive stones and dragged her inside. Safe from the creatures gathering outside, the pressure dropped, the water warmed slightly, and the silence returned, only broken by her weak breathing. She was hurt badly, her side was torn, and her light dimmed. Carter searched his suit pack. Finding an emergency gel and sealing it over her wound, she winced, but didn't pull away. Her hand gripped his shoulder tightly as if to say, "I'm still here." Time passed slowly. Carter watched the cave entrance, ready to fight if anything came near. But the creatures outside didn't follow. They waited, circling. Drawn to the blood but afraid of what it meant, he turned back to her, whispering softly through his helmet, "You're going to be all right. I promise." Her lips moved faintly, forming sounds he didn't understand. Then she reached up and touched his forehead. Her light passed into him again, and a vision followed. This time, he saw the truth behind the shadow. It wasn't just a predator, it was a guardian once. A protector of balance in the ocean. but it had lost its mind after something fell from the stars, a human satellite that poisoned the lower sea. The creature had changed, become a monster, and her people had suffered. Now it wanted her power, her light, to remake the ocean in its image. When the vision ended, Carter understood her pain and her purpose. She wasn't just a survivor, she was a last hope, a living memory of a dying world. She opened her eyes fully and gave him a weak smile. Her fingers brushed his cheek plate, and her eyes said what? Words could not. She didn't regret saving him, even if it had cost her blood. Carter held her gently, feeling the faint pulse of her heart against his arm. He wouldn't let her fade. Not here. Not like this. As long as he breathed, he would protect her. Outside the cave, the sea waited, darker than ever. But Carter no longer felt fear. He had chosen his side. Not as a scientist, but as something more, a guardian of what should never be lost. Asterisk. The cave walls glowed faintly around them, casting slow-moving light over the jagged stone. Carter sat close to her, his arm wrapped around her shoulder. Her breathing was weak, but steady. Her wound had closed. But her strength had not returned, and outside the sea had gone silent again, which made it worse. Nothing circled now, no pulse signals, no shadows, only deep water and thick silence. Carter knew this kind of quiet meant something bigger was coming. The deep was holding its breath again. He looked around the cave, hoping to find something useful, tools, energy, food, but it was just a hiding place. Dry enough to think, quiet. Enough to hear his own heartbeat echo through the stone. Then he saw it, a rusted human panel built into the wall. Half covered by crystal and seaweed, it was ancient, older than any known Europa outpost. It had the old Earth logo, faded and cracked, a forgotten shelter. He cleared it, pried it open, and stepped inside. Inside, the airlock chamber was still pressurized, barely. Lights flickered as power flowed back into old screens. Emergency systems blinked weakly. But they were alive. The station was real, lost tech from the first wave of deep-sea human explorers. Buried by time and ice, a lab, a core, and a genetics module. Carter stared at it with wide eyes. He scanned the data. Finding logs in broken language, they spoke of something experimental, something designed to adapt human lungs to extreme underwater pressure. It was a prototype, never tested. It merged mammalian and aquatic traits, temporary at first, permanent by choice. Carter stepped back, heart pounding. This wasn't science fiction anymore. This was the answer, the link, the way to bridge to species, a way to survive in her world. He returned to her, knelt beside her, and placed her hand against his chest. Her eyes opened slowly, and he began explaining through gestures, drawings, and shared pulses from his helmet's light pad. He showed her the chamber, the machine, the process. Her fingers trembled as she responded with matching symbols. She knew of it. Her people had once tried similar things long ago, but it had failed them. He tapped his chest, then pointed to her, then to the sea, then back to the machine. It wasn't just a chance to survive, it was a choice to belong. She paused, then reached forward and touched his face. Her hand lingered. There, her light passing softly into him again. This time he saw her memory of a child, one of her own, who had died during a migration. Pulled too close to the surface, lungs crushed by pressure, her people had suffered so much loss, so much silence. She didn't want that silence anymore, not for him. Carter stood and led her to the old chamber. Her body swayed in the low gravity, but she walked beside him. The door opened with a hiss, and the machine came to life. A soft hum, a steady light, and a seat meant for one. He looked at her again. She gave him a slow nod, her fingers pressed against the glass of the pod as he stepped inside. Sealing the door, the machine scanned him, slowly adapting the instructions. Carter closed his eyes as warm liquid filled the pod. Rising to his neck, sensors pierced his suit, rewriting his lungs, his blood, his skin. Pain flared through his chest, but it faded quickly, replaced by something else. Calm, clarity, like he was becoming part of the water itself. When the door opened, Carter took his first breath underwater without a mask, and he didn't choke, didn't panic. He exhaled, and bubbles danced around his face like stars. She stepped forward and touched his chest, feeling the rhythm inside he had chosen. Her world, not just for her, but for all of it. He could speak through pulses now. He could swim deeper, stay longer, and protect what had been forgotten. They left the cave together, rising through the silent sea. Her strength returned slowly, and his new form moved with grace, no longer limited by surface gear or human weight. As they reached the open ocean, Carter saw the ancient shadow stir again, but this time it paused, watching him, sensing the change. Sensing the bond, it turned away, not in fear, but in respect. For the first time, he wasn't just an intruder. He was part of the deep, and he had made his choice. The depths we share, the ocean, no longer felt cold. Not to him. Carter moved through the water like he had been born in it. His limbs were light, his breath was steady. His eyes could now see the glowing shapes in the dark, shapes no human had ever seen and lived to describe. Beside him swam the alien mermaid. Her glow brighter now, steady and calm. The wound on her side had closed, and color had returned to her cheeks. She moved differently now, not with pain but with purpose. They swam together past jagged cliffs, under arches of crystal and streams of warm current. The sea opened before them like a living kingdom. In the distance, southern lights began to move, shapes like her, slowly approaching, at first only a few, then dozens, then more, each one cautious, each one uncertain, until they saw Carter and paused. He stood in the open, arms wide, his chest pulsed softly with the same rhythm as the mermaid beside him. He did not speak, but his light did, a signal from heart to sea. From human to alien, he wasn't here to take. What? He was here to share. The alien merfolk circled around, watching his every move. They studied his breath, his skin, his movements. Slowly their own lights began to blink in patterns of recognition. One by one, they joined the circle, forming a chain of light in the water. Then she stepped forward, the mermaid who had saved him, who had almost died for him. She rose above the others and sent out a long, slow pulse. Her light spread through the sea. Not in fear, but in invitation. Carter answered with his own pulse, and the ocean shimmered with color. A moment passed, then the oldest among the merfolk swam forward. His body marked with time and loss, he touched Carter's chest, eyes narrowing, feeling the change in him, and he nodded. Carter had been accepted. Not as an outsider, not as a visitor, but as one of them, above them. The research base sent out drones looking for him. Satellite pings and search signals moved across the surface. Ice, they believed he was dead, lost in the deep. His sub had been found crushed and empty, and the logs had been wiped clean. Back at the base, questions rose, fingers pointed, and files disappeared. Corporate command labeled it as unrecoverable, another tragic loss in the name of science. But Carter was not lost. He dove deeper now, exploring the ruined cities with her, unlocking forgotten doors, helping to activate old machines and repair what time had buried. He shared his knowledge, and in return, they gave him theirs. Language, memory, vision, and the music of the deep. The city that had once fallen began to breathe again. Lights returned to the coral towers. Families returned to the caves. The old temple reopened, not as a place of warning, but as a place of learning. And Carter stood beside her, his partner, his guide, and now his equal. They swam together through schools of glowing fish, across black trenches and golden reefs. Their hands touched often gently, like waves brushing sand. And every night, when the sea quieted, they rested beneath the stars that shined faintly through the ice above. Carter sometimes thought about Earth, about the sky, about his old life. But those thoughts came like passing clouds, and they never stayed long. He had found something deeper here, a place where the heart did not speak in words, but in light. And in that light, he was no longer alone. He had come for science. Not for proof, for knowledge, but what he found was something stronger than all of that, something warm in the coldest place in the solar system. He had found a home, and beneath the ice, in a sea where no one believed life could survive. A new world was growing one pulse at a time. Together, they guarded its secrets, not with fear, but with hope. Because some depths were not meant to be conquered. They were meant to be shared. The end.